Hey y'all, Eric Adcock, This Awkward Life. I just love when things. This article I read the other day, just couldn't wait to do a podcast over it. So recently, a message in a bottle was found in this remote part on this remote island in Australia, and inside was two letters from two soldiers from August of 1916. So almost 110 years, these messages have been lost and they were discovered. And it was two soldiers from Australia. Um, one of them was a young man named Malcolm Neville, and the other one was William Harley. So these two soldiers were headed off for the battle in Europe. They decided, hey, we'll do like anybody else. I've always done messages in the bottle. If you know, if I've ever been on a ship or something like that. But anyway, so these two young men, or I say young men, one was 27 and one was, I think, 30 something at the time, going off to battle, had wrote these letters and threw them overboard. And Malcolm Neville's letter was pretty funny. He must have been quite the comedian. He said, "Dear Mother, having a real good time. Food is real good so far, with the exception of the one meal which was buried at sea, accompanied by the mouth organ." So that I found that pretty funny. He seemed to have be a good time. But having a good time going to war, which is probably a totally different podcast. I have to write that down. A good time going to war. But anyway, they had threw the letters overboard in this bottle, and they were found. And I just find it just amazing. And these two men, although they've been gone for several years, Malcolm died the next year in a battle overseas. The other soldier, he did return home, but died in 1954, William Harley. So Malcolm Alexander died about a year after throwing his message overboard, and Private William Harley died, I think, in 1953. But anyway, so the families of these men were contacted once these messages were read, and it's amazing that they still had some great grandchildren out there. Still had some great great nephews, and one of the nephews said, "It's amazing. It seems like our great uncle is speaking to us from the grave. We're stunned. There's still 5 grandchildren alive from Mr. William Harley's family." And he said, let me see if I can find it. I got this article in front of me that this has really brought our family closer together. And it's amazing that something like that, when you really start thinking about it, all right? So here's two men 110 years ago leaving to go off, and they've found these messages, these letters, and how the descendants are saying it just really brought our family together. Men that have been gone for, 100 years for one young man, and then the other one for close to 100, And so I've always felt like things like that mean something. And so anytime I hear of a message found in a bottle or anything like that, I think of this song by the Police. It's titled "Message in a Bottle." And anytime I think of that song, I think of a friend of mine that we had years ago. His name was Chad Sanders, and Chad loved the Police. That was his favorite band. And even today, nearly 40 years later, if I ever hear a song like that, I think about Chad. And so once I read this article Monday, was it Tuesday or Wednesday this week, I automatically thought of Chad. And Chad had died about 8-9 years ago. Young man, he was in his 40s, but had passed away. And we had been trying to find where he was buried. His parents are not available. I think his father's passed away, and his ex-wife didn't know where he was buried. Just probably some issues there that no one wanted to deal with or whatever. But anyway, so the moment I read this article about this message in a bottle, and I thought of the song, I thought about Chad. I said, well, I'll try one more time to see if I can find him. So I went to, there's this website or an app too. It's called Find a Grave. It's a historical research website. It's tied in with Ancestry.com, things like that. Anyway, so when I typed in his information, in times past, I'd never been able to find it. It just wasn't out there. It hadn't been indexed. No one had been out there. And but anyway, after I read this article, and I got to think about just how, I guess you can say coincidence. I don't too much believe coincidence. I believe everything's just kind of all tied together, you know. Someone had indexed his grave and where he was buried and everything like that. And I was able to pass that information along to my older brother. And I just I love the life that I live of this stuff. I just love finding that. I love being able to find a connection with two men from 100 some odd years ago that was off to war, to a memory and a song, and then to be able to find a location of a dear friend that has passed away. Everything's just kind of tied to, I don't know. It's weird. It's weird like that. Weird the way it works. But we really do. Message in a bottle. Yeah. I mean, I think no one wants to be forgotten. And I think that's why we do that. I think that's why we podcast. I think that's why we make friends. I think that's why we write letters. I think that's why we put time capsules in the ground. I think that's why we save stuff, because nobody wants to be forgotten. In this huge world with so much going on, nobody wants to be forgotten. Just like these young men going off to battle and writing letters and throwing them over they probably never thought about it again. One young man, Malcolm died just a few months later. And then the other man probably never told anybody about his message in a bottle he sent. But 75, 80 years after he's been gone, that's found. And it just got me to thinking about, what will people find that you left behind? It's going to be found. I mean, whether it be a note or a letter, or maybe it may not be a physical, tangible item like this message in a bottle, but it could be a pat on the back. Could be a, hey man, you doing good. It could be an encouraging word. It could be something like that you leave behind. And I think that's the main thing. I don't think you have to be forgotten as long as you're constantly leaving good things behind. And unfortunately, some people leave bad things behind. But I think if you're mindful, you can leave good things, whether that be physical items or just things that you can't touch, like kind words, good deeds. I think that's a message in a bottle. I think if you tell someone, hey, you're doing good, I appreciate and I love you, I think that's a message in a bottle that will continue to float out there, and it will be found, just like this amazing story of these two young men that sent out that message in a bottle, and almost 110 years later, was able to be found and bring families together. And I just think that's so cool, man. I think that's cool. Yeah, let's talk about cool stuff. All right, y'all have a good one. Bye.